Porsche eFuels, EV vote on ICE ban, Peugeot's new hybrid technology, Inflation Reduction Act, MDL, BYD, Renault dealers, used EV big price drop, Toyota spends $1 million per hour in R&D and 4 jobs to go. Hello and welcome to this week's MotorZen News. Porsche's e-fuel plant in Chile has produced its first e-fuel. The reason the plant is in Chile is because of wind energy. There's lots of wind in Chile. They can produce their electricity from wind. They then use that electricity to produce hydrogen via electrolysis. They then use CO2 from the ambient air, and this creates e-methanol to convert that to gas and refine it back so that it can be used in cars. It's been put into the first 911, and that 911 has been drifted around the plant in Chile. They're predicting that they're going to turn out 130,000 litres this year. That is primarily going to be used in the Porsches that are racing in the Porsche Super Cup. By 2026, they're going to produce 14.5 million litres. That's going to be primarily for Formula One, because that's why Porsche was so pushy about Formula One going to e-fuels, which they are from 2026 on. If they can get the price of e-fuels to match the price of petrol, well then this is a serious threat to EV. But right now it's taking 3 times the amount of energy to produce e-fuel as it is to produce petrol. And again, with this whole fuel thing and what's happening with propulsion of vehicles going forward, the EU have formally enacted the law that bans the sale of ICE engines by 2035. It was 340 votes to 279 against. Italy were one of the countries that said they didn't want a 100% ban by 2035. They wanted a 90% ban. Because of an interesting statistic in the Italian market this year was that EV sales are down by 26%. So again, there's some weird things happening out here, and it's not all plain sailing for EV, and it's not guaranteed that EV is the future, because these anomalies keep showing up. Stellantis Peugeot will launch the new 3008 and 5008 with a new hybrid system. They're going to run with a 1.2 petrol engine, 3-cylinder. It's producing 134 brake horsepower through a 6-speed automatic transmission. There's a small battery underneath the seat. This battery will produce 28 horsepower on a 48-volt system. It's linked to a motor that's in the transmission. And what they're saying is that in urban traffic, they reckon that this vehicle could drive itself for 50% of the time, thereby producing a 15% saving on fuel. Oh, and this motor is also used to start the vehicle through a pulley belt on to the crankshaft as well. So again, another take on hybrid, another different idea on hybrid. Early e-Peugeots were using capacitors. In this instance here, they're using a battery with a motor in the transmission. Inflation Reduction Act is this massive incentive that's been produced in America to encourage the car manufacturers to produce EVs. They call this the IRA, which we always get a bit nervous when I see the abbreviation. Inflation Reduction Act. It's giving billions of dollars in subsidies to the EV makers in America. But the issue with this is that there's massive concern among car manufacturers who don't manufacture in America. And they're saying that they think they're going to be under a massive disadvantage in the American market. Jaguar Land Rover, Porsche, Audi, Mazda, Subaru and Mitsubishi are just some of the manufacturers that will not be able to avail of this massive subsidy because they don't produce their products in America, and they're saying that they're at a huge disadvantage in the American market. MDL, Motor Distributors Limited, owned by the O'Flaherty family, the organisation credited with being the first company outside of Germany to build a Beetle. The first Beetle that was built outside of Germany was built in Dublin. MDL had been the importers of Volkswagen up to 2007, when they sold the rights back to Volkswagen in Germany for in the region of 70 million euros. They're also the importers for Mercedes, but this week they've signed a deal with BYD in China. BYD standing for Build Your Dreams. Some might say, well, they're nobodies. Who the hell are they? Well, from January to November of last year, they sold 1.62 million vehicles. Tesla sold 1.37 million vehicles. So they're not nobodies in the car game. Interesting to see that a traditional manufacturer, old school organisation, been in the motor industry since the year dot in Ireland, have done a deal with a Chinese company, which is on electric vehicles. This is electric vehicles. This is not old school. This is electric vehicles. The byline for BYD is Global Innovator in Pioneering Battery Technology. So again, we're seeing this development occur of the Chinese becoming more and more, appearing more and more into the market. And this is a really strong entry now with a distributor as strong as MDL. Again, something we reported on the show in the last couple of months, this new concept of selling cars, the idea that the traditional dealer is no longer, the idea that BMW, Mercedes and Peugeot have all got in their contracts now the agreement that they can run with the agency model, which the theory is that they can take the order online and that effectively the dealer simply does a handover of the car. Well, Renault have come out in the UK this week and says that they're committed to the franchise dealer model. They're committed to the traditional model of having strong franchise dealers. They're saying that's essential to their customer satisfaction and growth. So two completely contradicting views as how cars will go to the market in the years ahead. Interesting to see Renault just sticking to this traditional format, and it is always concerning when you see the link being lost between the brand and the product. And the link that a traditional local dealer brings, because I know, for example, you can go into areas whereby particularly possibly unpopular brands are very strong, and one of the reasons they're strong is because the dealer is so strong. But other manufacturers said, no, we don't need it anymore, the internet or online is going to replace that. But Renault clearly not convinced of that. Massive drop in EV used prices in the UK market. This is a very strange story. Something's after happening in the value of used EVs in the UK. HPI, who report in on the trade pricing in the UK, and Auto Trader, who report in on the retail pricing in the UK. Auto Trader have said that EVs over the course of the year are 2.1% off their used values that they would have been for the previous year. The general market is off by 0.2%. This has got massive consequences for EV sales because 90% of vehicles in the UK are financed. And the way you finance is that you're very, very confident that you can price the pricing for your finance based on the residual value of the vehicle. So they're predicting that in 3 years' time or 2 years' time, the vehicle will be worth this. Well, in January, the fall was even bigger. The fall in January was 6.6% down on last year. That's £2,050 per vehicle that they're saying EVs are after dropping. So if you were pricing your vehicles and your £2,000 or £2,000 or £3,000 out, this has massive effects on the monthly payment that customer will pay on lease or PCP. So that's a massive destabilising effect in the market. And right now, dealers in the UK, used dealers are saying we're not willing to stock EVs at the moment because the price is so volatile and unclear as what's happening. And it is unclear as what's happening. Nobody seems to know why this happened, why EV sales prices have dropped so much. For the last 9 years, Toyota have been the number one car company in the number of patents that they file. Last year they filed 3,056 patents. Half of those were from future mobility. They're number 4 on the top 5 in patents requested. the only people that are ahead of them are Samsung, IBM and LG. And get this figure, Toyota spends $1 million per hour on R&D. Hard to contemplate it, but clearly, and this is also very unusual because this is a company that has been saying that full EV isn't the way to go. A company that's not afraid to spend money on trying to figure out what the future is by all their research and development. But at the same time, one of the biggest spenders in R&D, and also an organisation that said EV is not the way to go. Contrary to what Toyota are doing, Ford, on the other hand, lost $2 billion last year, and they've announced this week that they're going to shed 3,800 jobs over the next 3 years, and most of those are going to be in Europe. Most of those are going to be UK and Germany. So again, huge activity taking place in the industry, huge changes occurring. Such a traditional name, the original volume seller, is hitting choppy waters right now with the losses in the organisation. All these jobs have to go while they're making a transition to EV. That's what most of this is about. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and again, you know the routine. If you could please like, comment, subscribe and share. If you could share, we're getting guys sharing our content a little bit more to like-minded people within the trade. So if you know anybody in the trade that you think might have a little bit of interest in what we're doing, please share it on if you could. Thanks, and see you next week.